There's a woman in room 7 who keeps asking me to bring her baby, but according to every record we have, she was never pregnant at all. My name is Rebecca, and I've been working as an overnight midwife at the Natural Birth Center of Riverside for almost 6 years now. I love what I do. There's something magical about those quiet night hours when new life enters the world, when families are born, when everything feels sacred and profound. I've delivered hundreds of babies, held countless mothers' hands through their most vulnerable moments, and witnessed miracles that most people only experience once or twice in their lifetimes. But what's happening right now, what's been happening for the past 11 nights, it's changed everything I thought I knew about this job, this building, and maybe even about reality itself. Let me start from the beginning. The Natural Birth Center of Riverside isn't a hospital. We're a freestanding birth center, which means we specialize in low-risk, natural births for women who want a more holistic, home-like experience. We have 6 birthing suites, all beautifully decorated with soft lighting, comfortable beds, birthing tubs, and everything a laboring mother might need. Our philosophy is minimal intervention, maximum support, letting nature take its course while trained professionals stand ready to help if needed. I work the overnight shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., usually 3 or 4 nights a week. Most nights are quiet. We might have 1 or 2 mothers in active labor, sometimes none at all. It gives me time to catch up on paperwork, sterilize equipment, prepare rooms for upcoming births. I work with a rotating team of nurses and other midwives, but often I'm the only birth professional on site during those deep night hours, with nursing staff for support and a physician on call if complications arise. The building itself is lovely. It's a converted Victorian house on the edge of Riverside, surrounded by old oak trees and a garden that our clients love. During the day, it feels warm and welcoming. At night, with most of the lights off and just the glow from occupied rooms, it has a different energy. Peaceful, usually. Sacred. Like the whole building is holding its breath, waiting for those first cries of new babies. I've never been afraid here. Not in 6 years. Not until 11 nights ago. It was a Tuesday, just after midnight. I was doing my rounds, checking on our 2 laboring mothers, when I heard a call bell from room 7. That surprised me because room 7 was empty. I'd checked it myself at the start of my shift, made sure it was clean and ready for the next client, but no one was scheduled to use it that night. I walked down the hallway, my footsteps quiet on the hardwood floors, and pushed open the door to room 7. The lights were off, but in the glow from the hallway, I could see someone in the bed. A woman, lying on her side, her back to me. My first thought was that maybe one of our scheduled clients had arrived early and the front desk had admitted her without telling me. It happens sometimes when things get busy. But when I checked the tablet we use for patient records, there was nothing. No new admission. No name assigned to room 7. I approached the bed slowly, not wanting to startle her. I could see she had long dark hair spread across the pillow, and she was wearing one of our standard birthing gowns, the soft cotton ones we provide. Her breathing was even, like she was sleeping. I said softly, "Hello? I'm Rebecca, one of the midwives. I didn't realize we had someone in this room tonight." She didn't move. Didn't respond. I came around to the side of the bed where I could see her face, and my breath caught. She was beautiful in an ethereal, almost unreal way. Pale skin, delicate features, eyes closed peacefully. But something about her felt off. Her skin was too pale, almost translucent. And she was completely still, not the restless shifting of a laboring woman, but the absolute stillness of someone in very deep sleep. I reached out to gently touch her shoulder, to wake her and find out who she was, when her eyes suddenly opened. They were dark, so dark they looked black in the dim light, and they focused on me with an intensity that made me step back. "Where's my baby?" she asked. Her voice was soft but clear, with an edge of desperation that I'd heard from countless mothers, that primal need to see their child, to know their baby is safe. I was confused. I glanced around the room, but there was no bassinet, no infant anywhere. I'm sorry, I just came in. I didn't know you were here. Can you tell me your name? When did you deliver? She sat up slowly, and I noticed her hospital gown. There was no blood, no fluids, nothing to indicate she'd recently given birth. Her abdomen was flat beneath the thin fabric. She looked at me with those impossibly dark eyes and repeated, "Where's my baby? I want to see my baby. Ma'am, I need to check your records. What's your name? When were you admitted?" "Catherine," she said. "My name is Catherine. And I need my baby. Please. I need to hold my baby." I pulled out the tablet again, searched for any patient named Catherine. Nothing in our current records. Nothing in recent discharges. I was starting to feel a creeping unease, the kind that makes your skin prickle and your heart beat faster. "Catherine, I'm going to need to get some information from you. When did you arrive at the birth center? Who was your midwife? Do you remember giving birth?" She tilted her head, studying me like I was speaking a language she didn't quite understand. Then she said, "I've been waiting so long. Where is my baby? Why won't anyone bring me my baby?" There was something wrong here, something deeply wrong. I made a decision. "Catherine, I'm going to step out for just a moment to check on something, okay? I'll be right back." I walked quickly out of the room and down to the nurses' station where Jenny, one of our night nurses, was updating charts. I must have looked panicked because she immediately stood up. "Rebecca? What's wrong? There's a woman in room 7. Says her name is Catherine. She's asking for her baby, but I have no record of her. Did anyone check in tonight that I wasn't told about?" Jenny frowned and checked her own computer. Room 7 should be empty. We only have clients in rooms 2 and 4 tonight. No Catherine in the system at all. Well, she's there. She's in the bed, wearing our gown, asking for a baby that apparently doesn't exist. Jenny's eyes widened. Should I call security? Or the police? I don't know. She doesn't seem dangerous, just confused. Maybe she's a psych patient who wandered in. Can you come with me? We walked back to room 7 together. I pushed the door open, and my stomach dropped. The room was empty. The bed was perfectly made, undisturbed, exactly as I'd left it at the start of my shift. No woman. No Catherine. Nothing to indicate anyone had been there at all. Jenny and I searched the room, checked the bathroom, looked in the closets. Nothing. The bed was cold to the touch, the linens crisp and clean. It was like I'd imagined the whole thing. "Rebecca, are you feeling okay? Have you been getting enough sleep?" Jenny's voice was gentle but concerned. I wanted to say yes, that I'd imagined it, that I was just tired. But I knew what I'd seen. I'd touched that bed. I'd looked into Catherine's eyes. She'd been real. "I know what I saw," I said quietly. "There was a woman here." Jenny didn't argue with me, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. We checked on our actual patients, both progressing normally in their labors, and I tried to focus on my job, on the real mothers who needed me. But I kept thinking about Catherine, about her desperate voice asking for her baby. The rest of that shift passed without incident. Both mothers delivered healthy babies in the early morning hours, and I went home at 7 a.m. exhausted but telling myself I'd been hallucinating, that stress or fatigue had played tricks on my mind. But the next night, it happened again. Same room. Same time. Just after midnight, the call bell from room 7 rang, and when I checked, Catherine was there. Same position in the bed, same translucent pale skin, same dark eyes. "Where's my baby?" she asked, the moment she saw me. "Please, I need my baby." This time I was ready. I had my phone out, and I took a photo. Or tried to. When I looked at the screen, the image was completely black, like the camera couldn't capture her. I tried again, adjusting settings, but every photo came out as pure darkness. Catherine, I need you to tell me what's happening. Are you real? Are you a ghost? What do you want? She looked at me with such profound sadness that it broke my heart. I just want my baby. They took my baby. I've been waiting here for so long. Please help me find my baby. Who took your baby? When did this happen? But before she could answer, she faded. Like someone was turning down her opacity, she became more and more translucent until she simply wasn't there anymore, and once again I was standing in an empty room with a perfectly made bed. I called Jenny again. She came, saw the empty room, and this time she looked genuinely worried about me. She suggested I take the rest of the night off, get some rest, maybe see a doctor. But I refused. I had patients who needed me, and I wasn't going to abandon my post because of something I didn't understand. On the third night, I came prepared. I brought a voice recorder, a video camera, every piece of technology one could think of to document what was happening. And Catherine appeared again, right on schedule, just after midnight in room 7. I recorded everything. I asked her questions, tried to get details about who she was, when she'd been here, what had happened to her baby. She gave me fragments, pieces of a story that didn't quite make sense. She said she'd come to the birth center to have her baby. She said she'd been in labor for a long time, so long she'd lost track. She said there had been complications, that people were worried, that everything had gone dark. And then she woke up here, without her baby, and no one would tell her where her baby was. How long ago was this, Catherine? What year is it? She looked confused. Year? I don't. I came here on October 13th. For my baby. October 13th of what year? 1994, she whispered. 1994. 31 years ago. I felt cold wash over me. Catherine, what's your full name? Your last name? Catherine Reeves. Catherine and Reeves. Please, why won't anyone help me? Where is my baby? I checked the recordings when she faded away that night. The voice recorder had captured static. The video camera showed an empty room. Nothing. Despite her being right there in front of me, despite our conversation, despite me seeing her clear as day, no technology would document her presence. I started researching. I spent my days off digging through old records, contacting the birth center's previous owners, searching for any mention of Catherine and Reeves. It took 3 days, but I found her. There was a newspaper article from October 15, 1994. Tragedy at local birth center. Catherine and Reeves, age 26, had died during childbirth at what was then called Riverside Natural Birthing House. Complications during labor, hemorrhaging, attempts to transfer her to the hospital had failed. She died en route. The article mentioned she was 8 months pregnant with her first child. But here's the thing that made my blood run cold. The article said the baby had died too. Stillborn, they called it. The baby never took a breath, never lived outside Catherine's womb. Mother and child, both lost in one terrible night. I brought the article with me to work the next night. When Catherine appeared, I showed it to her, though I don't know if she could see it. I read it aloud, gently, trying to make her understand. Catherine, I'm so sorry, but you died. You died giving birth 31 years ago. And your baby didn't survive either. She stared at me with those dark eyes, and for the first time, I saw emotion flicker across her face. Confusion. Denial. Horror. No, she whispered. No, that's not right. I can feel my baby. I can feel my baby moving inside me. My baby is alive. Someone took my baby. Someone is keeping my baby from me. I didn't know what to say. How do you explain to a ghost that they're dead? That their baby never lived? That they've been trapped here for 3 decades, reliving the trauma of their death over and over? Catherine, you're at the natural birth center. This is where you died. I think you've been here ever since, waiting for a baby that can't come to you because both of you are gone. She became agitated then, more animated than I'd ever seen her. She sat up fully, swung her legs over the side of the bed like she was going to stand. No. No. My baby is here. I can hear my baby crying. Why can't you hear it? Why won't you bring me my baby? And then I heard it. Faint, distant, but unmistakable. A baby crying. The sound was coming from somewhere in the building, echoing through the halls. The hair on my arms stood up. Jenny heard it too. She came running from the nurse's station. Rebecca, is one of the babies fussy? That doesn't sound like it's coming from rooms 2 or 4. We followed the sound. It led us downstairs to the basement level where we keep supplies and old equipment. The crying grew louder as we descended, more desperate, more insistent. It was coming from a storage room at the end of the hallway, a room we rarely used. Jenny opened the door, and the crying stopped instantly. The room was full of old furniture, boxes of outdated supplies, things that had been here for years. But in the back corner, covered with a dusty sheet, was something I'd never noticed before. We pulled back the sheet and found an antique wooden cradle. It was beautiful, hand-carved, probably from the early 1900s. And inside the cradle, wrapped in a yellowed blanket, was a small bundle. My hands were shaking as I reached for it. The bundle was light, too light. I carefully unwrapped the blanket, and inside was a porcelain doll. A baby doll, old and fragile, with glass eyes that seemed to stare right through me. But beneath the doll was something else. A small metal box. I opened it with trembling fingers, and inside were documents. Birth certificates, death certificates, medical records. And right on top was Catherine and Reeves's file. I read through it by the light of my phone. Catherine had come to the birth center on October 13, 1994, in active labor. But things had gone wrong quickly. The baby was in distress, breech position, cord compression. They'd tried to stabilize her, tried to arrange transport to the hospital, but Catherine was hemorrhaging badly. According to the notes, she'd lost consciousness. They'd performed an emergency delivery, extracted the baby, tried to resuscitate both mother and child. But the baby showed no signs of life. No heartbeat, no breath, no response to any intervention. Catherine had died minutes later, still unconscious, never knowing her baby hadn't survived. But here's what made me feel sick. There was a second set of notes, handwritten, from the midwife on duty that night. Her name was Eleanor Wright. And her notes told a different story. She wrote that the baby had shown signs of life initially. Weak, but alive. But the mother was dying, bleeding out, beyond saving. Eleanor had made a decision. She'd recorded the baby as stillborn, told the family the baby had died with the mother, because the baby was so weak, so compromised, that she didn't believe it would survive more than a few hours anyway. She didn't want to give the family hope only to lose the baby shortly after losing Catherine. But what happened to the baby after that, Eleanor's notes didn't say. The file just ended. No record of what became of Catherine's child, of whether it really had died or if it had survived despite Eleanor's expectations. I took the file upstairs, back to room 7. Catherine was still there, sitting on the bed, her hands pressed against her flat stomach, rocking slightly. "Catherine," I said gently. "I found your file. I need to tell you something, but it's going to be hard to hear." She looked up at me with those desperate, haunted eyes. Did you find my baby? Your baby was born that night. The night you died. But your baby was very sick, very weak. The midwife who delivered your baby thought it wouldn't survive, so she told everyone it was stillborn. But I don't know what happened after that. I don't know if your baby died or if it lived. Catherine stood up, and for the first time, she seemed solid, real, almost alive. My baby lived. Her voice was different, stronger, filled with hope. I don't know. Maybe. For a little while at least. But Catherine, it's been 31 years. Even if your baby survived that night, even if Eleanor was wrong and your baby was stronger than she thought, your child would be 31 years old now. A grown adult. Not a baby anymore. She shook her head violently. No. No. I can feel my baby. My baby needs me. My baby is here, somewhere in this building, crying for me. I can hear it. I thought about the crying we'd heard, the sound that had led us to the cradle, to the doll, to Catherine's file. Catherine, I think what you're hearing is an echo. A memory of your baby's cry from that night. But your baby isn't here. Not as an infant. Not anymore. She looked at me with such anguish that I almost couldn't bear it. Then help me, she pleaded. Help me find out what happened. Help me know if my baby lived. I can't leave until I know. I've been trapped here for so long, waiting, hoping, and no one will tell me the truth. I made a promise that night that I probably shouldn't have made. I told Catherine I would find out what happened to her baby. I would track down Eleanor Wright, search for birth records, do whatever it took to give her answers. Over the next week, I became obsessed. I called every hospital in the region, searched adoption records, contacted genealogical societies. I tracked down Eleanor Wright, now 87 years old and living in a nursing home 3 hours away. I drove there on my day off. Eleanor was in a wheelchair, her mind still sharp despite her frail body. When I mentioned Catherine and Reeves, her entire demeanor changed. Her face went pale, her hands started shaking. I've been waiting for someone to ask about that night, she said quietly. I've carried the guilt of it for 31 years. She told me everything. The baby had been born alive but critically weak, barely breathing, turning blue. Catherine was dying, hemorrhaging uncontrollably, and Eleanor had to make a choice. Save the mother or save the baby, but she couldn't do both with the limited resources they had. She'd chosen Catherine, tried desperately to stop the bleeding, to stabilize her vitals. But Catherine had slipped away despite everything. And in those crucial minutes while Eleanor fought for Catherine's life, the baby had been lying in a bassinet, struggling to breathe, with no one attending to it. When Eleanor finally turned her attention back to the infant, she'd assumed it was too late. The baby wasn't crying, wasn't moving, appeared lifeless. In her panic and grief over losing Catherine, Eleanor had declared the baby stillborn, wrapped it in a blanket, placed it in the morgue cooler they kept for such tragedies. But an hour later, when the funeral home came to collect the bodies, Eleanor had heard something. A small sound from the cooler. She'd opened it, and the baby was moving, making weak mewling sounds, somehow still clinging to life despite the cold, despite being declared dead. Eleanor panicked. She'd already filed the death certificate, already told the family both mother and baby had died. If she admitted the baby was alive, she'd lose her license, face legal consequences, possibly criminal charges for medical negligence. So she made another terrible decision. She took the baby, wrapped it warmly, and drove through the night to a hospital in a neighboring city. She left the infant in the emergency room with a note saying she'd found the baby abandoned. Then she drove away. I told myself I was giving the baby a chance, Eleanor said, tears streaming down her aged face. That the hospital would care for it, that it would be adopted by someone who could give it a good life. But the truth is I was a coward. I was protecting myself. And I've never forgiven myself for it. I asked her if she knew what happened to the baby after that. She shook her head. She'd never followed up, too afraid to leave any trail that might connect her to the abandoned infant. She didn't know if it survived, if it was adopted, if it had any kind of life at all. But she remembered which hospital. St. Mary's, about 40 miles from Riverside. She even remembered the date and approximate time she'd left the baby there. October 14, 1994, around 4:30 in the morning. I contacted St. Mary's. After explaining I was researching a family history case, they eventually connected me with their records department. Yes, they had a record of an abandoned female infant brought to the emergency room on that date. The baby had been severely hypothermic, malnourished, in critical condition. She'd spent 3 weeks in the NICU fighting for her life. But she'd survived. Against all odds, Catherine's baby had survived. She'd been placed in foster care, eventually adopted by a family whose records were sealed. The hospital couldn't give me any information about where she'd gone or who she'd become. But I had a name, the one the hospital had given her before the adoption. Baby Doe, they'd called her officially. But one of the nurses had nicknamed her Hope, because her survival had seemed so hopeless at first. I went back to the birth center that night with this information. I went to room 7 just after midnight, and Catherine was there, waiting like always. Catherine, I found out what happened to your baby. I found Eleanor, the midwife. And I need to tell you something incredible. Your baby lived. Catherine's entire being seemed to light up. She lived. My baby is alive. Your baby was a girl. She was born alive but very sick. Eleanor made terrible mistakes she's regretted for 31 years. But in the end, she took your baby to a hospital. Your daughter spent weeks fighting for her life, and she won. She survived. She was adopted by a family who loved her. Where is she? Where is my daughter? I need to see her. Catherine's desperation was painful to witness. I don't know where she is now. Adoption records are sealed. But Catherine, your daughter would be 31 years old now. A grown woman. And she's alive somewhere, living her life, because you gave her life even as you lost your own. Catherine was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that chilled me. She comes here sometimes. I can feel her. She doesn't know why, but she's drawn to this place. My daughter has been here. I thought she was confused, lost in her trauma. But then I remembered something. About 6 months ago, we'd had a young woman come in for a tour of the birth center. She'd been pregnant, considering having her baby here. I'd shown her around, and when we got to room 7, she'd stopped in the doorway. She'd looked pale, told me she felt dizzy, said something about the room feeling familiar even though she'd never been here before. She'd actually asked to sit down for a moment because she felt so strange. She'd ultimately decided not to have her baby at our center, said something about the building making her uncomfortable in a way she couldn't explain. I pulled up our tour records. Her name was Hope Anderson. 31 years old. Pregnant with her first child. Hope. The same name the nurses had called Catherine's abandoned baby. I looked at Catherine with wide eyes. Was she about this tall? I held my hand up. Dark hair, brown eyes, pregnant? Catherine nodded slowly. Yes. She came to this room. She stood right where you're standing. I tried to reach out to her, tried to make her see me, but she couldn't. She just felt something, some pull, some connection. My daughter. She was here, and I couldn't hold her. I couldn't tell her who I was. I pulled up every piece of information I could find on Hope Anderson. Social media, public records, anything. She lived 2 towns over, worked as a teacher, was married. And according to her Facebook page, she'd given birth 3 weeks ago to a healthy baby girl. I showed Catherine the photos on my phone, pictures of Hope holding her newborn daughter. This is your granddaughter, Catherine. Your bloodline continues. Your daughter survived, grew up, and now she has a baby of her own. Catherine stared at the photos, and for the first time since I'd met her, she smiled. It transformed her face, made her look peaceful, almost radiant. She's beautiful. They're both beautiful. They are, I agreed. Catherine, your daughter is alive and well. She has a family, a baby, a good life. You can let go now. You don't need to wait here anymore. But Catherine shook her head. I can't leave. Not yet. I need to see her. I need her to know what happened. I need her to know I didn't abandon her, that I fought to bring her into this world, that I loved her even though I never got to hold her. Catherine, she can't see you. She couldn't when she was here before, and she won't be able to if she comes back. Then you have to tell her. You have to bring her here and tell her about me. Please. I've waited 31 years. I can wait a little longer. But I need her to know the truth. I didn't know if I should contact Hope. What would I even say? Hi, I'm a midwife at a birth center you visited once, and I've been talking to your dead mother's ghost? She'd think I was insane. But looking at Catherine's pleading face, I knew I had to try. I sent Hope a message through Facebook, trying to sound professional and not completely crazy. I said I was researching the history of the Natural Birth Center and had come across information about her biological mother. I said if she was interested in learning about her birth mother, I'd be happy to share what I discovered. She responded within an hour. Yes, she was interested. She'd always wondered about her biological parents, had known she was adopted, but had never been able to find any information. She asked if we could meet. We arranged to meet at the birth center on a Saturday morning, during the day when Catherine didn't usually appear. I wasn't sure if that would matter, if Catherine could manifest during daylight hours if she tried, but I wanted to have this conversation in a calm, non-frightening setting. Hope arrived with her newborn daughter, a tiny thing wrapped in a pink blanket. She looked nervous but hopeful. I invited her into the consultation room and offered her tea, trying to figure out how to begin this impossible conversation. I started with the facts. I told her about Catherine and Reeves, about the birth that went wrong, about how both she and her baby had supposedly died on October 14, 1994. I showed her the newspaper article, the death certificates. But you didn't die, I said. Your mother did, but you survived. The midwife on duty made a terrible decision. She thought you were stillborn, but you weren't. When she realized you were alive, she panicked and left you at a hospital, where you were eventually adopted. Hope was crying, holding her baby close. My mother died giving birth to me? Yes. But she fought so hard to bring you into this world. According to the medical records, she was in labor for 18 hours, refusing to give up even when complications arose. She wanted you to live, Hope. That was her last wish, even if she didn't survive to see it fulfilled. Did she know? Before she died, did she know I was alive? This was the hard part. No. She lost consciousness before you were born. She never got to hold you, never knew if you'd survived. But Hope, I need to tell you something else, and I need you to keep an open mind. I told her about Catherine's spirit, about how she'd been appearing in room 7 every night for almost 2 weeks, asking for her baby. I told her about the crying sounds, the old cradle, the file we'd found. I explained that Catherine seemed trapped here, unable to move on because she'd never known what happened to her child. Hope looked at me like I'd lost my mind, which was fair. You're saying my birth mother's ghost is haunting this building? I know how it sounds. But yes. And she knows about you. She felt your presence when you came here 6 months ago. She's been desperate to know you're okay, to tell you her story, to let you know she loved you even though she never got to show it. Hope stood up, bouncing her baby gently. I think I should go. This is too much. I appreciate you finding this information about my birth mother, but ghosts and hauntings, that's not real. I understand. But would you be willing to come back one night? Just to see? You don't have to believe me, but if there's even a chance you could connect with your mother, wouldn't you want to try? She hesitated at the door, then looked down at her daughter. If my daughter lost me when she was born, if she grew up never knowing me, would I want to find a way to reach her? To let her know I loved her? Yes, I said softly. I think you would. She agreed to come back that night, after sunset. She left her baby with her husband and arrived at the birth center at 11:30. I met her at the door, led her upstairs to room 7. The room was dark, empty. Hope looked around skeptically. There's nothing here. Give it a few minutes. She usually appears just after midnight. We waited in silence, Hope sitting on the chair, me standing by the door. At exactly 12:03, the temperature in the room dropped noticeably. Hope's breath became visible in the cold air, and she stood up, alarmed. What's happening? She's coming. Just stay calm. She won't hurt you. Catherine appeared slowly, manifesting on the bed like she always did. But this time was different. She was more solid, more present, as if Hope's presence gave her extra strength. She sat up, looked around the room, and her eyes locked onto Hope. My baby, Catherine whispered. My baby girl. Hope gasped, stumbling backward. Oh my God. Oh my God, she's real. Hope, this is Catherine. Your mother. Catherine stood up from the bed, took a step toward Hope. You're so beautiful. You grew up. You survived. I've waited so long to see you. Hope was shaking, tears streaming down her face. You're really her. You're really my mother. Yes, sweetheart. Yes. I'm so sorry I wasn't there for you. I'm so sorry I left you alone. But I never stopped loving you. Even in death, I never stopped waiting for you. They stood facing each other, mother and daughter, separated by 3 decades and the barrier between life and death. Hope reached out a trembling hand, and Catherine did the same. Their fingers met, and for just a moment, they seemed to touch, really touch, before Catherine's hand passed through Hope's like mist. I wish I could hold you, Catherine said, her voice breaking. I wish I could have raised you, seen your first steps, heard your first words, been there for all of it. I had a good life, Hope said through her tears. My adoptive parents loved me. I was happy. But I always felt like something was missing, like there was a piece of me I couldn't find. Now I know what it was. It was you. They talked for hours. Catherine told Hope about her life before the pregnancy, about Hope's biological father, a man Catherine had loved who died in a car accident before Hope was born. She told Hope about her dreams for her daughter, the hopes she'd carried even as her body failed during that terrible labor. Hope told Catherine about her life, about growing up loved, about becoming a teacher, about meeting her husband, about the overwhelming love she felt when her own daughter was born. I understand now, Hope said. I understand what you went through. When I held my daughter for the first time, I knew I would do anything for her, sacrifice anything. You gave your life for me. Thank you. Thank you for fighting so hard. As dawn approached, Catherine started to fade. But before she disappeared completely, she smiled at Hope one last time. I can go now. I know you're okay. I know you're loved. I know my granddaughter will have the life I wanted to give you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for letting me see you. I can rest now. Wait, Hope called out. Will I ever see you again? Catherine's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. I'll always be with you, sweetheart. Every time you hold your daughter, every time you feel that overwhelming love, that's me. That's what I felt for you. That's what never dies. And then she was gone. Truly gone. Not just faded from sight, but gone in a way I could feel in my bones. The room felt lighter, warmer, like a weight had been lifted from the building itself. Hope and I sat in that room until sunrise, both of us crying, processing what had happened. When she finally left, she hugged me tight and thanked me for giving her this gift, this chance to meet the mother she'd never known. That was 3 weeks ago. I've worked at the Natural Birth Center every night since, and Catherine hasn't appeared again. Room 7 remains just a room, no longer haunted, no longer heavy with grief and waiting. But something else has happened. Hope has started volunteering at the birth center during the day, helping new mothers, sharing her story with women who are afraid of childbirth, reminding them how strong they are, how much love they carry. And she named her daughter Catherine. Catherine Hope Anderson. A name that honors both the woman who gave her life and the hope that kept Catherine's spirit bound to this world for 31 years. I think about Catherine often. About her sacrifice, her love, her endless patience waiting for answers. She taught me that love doesn't end with death, that a mother's bond with her child transcends even the grave. Last night, I was in room 7 preparing it for a birth scheduled for today. As I was smoothing the sheets on the bed, I felt something. A gentle warmth, like a hand on my shoulder, and I heard the faintest whisper, barely audible, like a breeze carrying words from far away. Thank you. I turned around, but there was no one there. Just an empty room filled with soft light from the bedside lamp. But I felt a presence, gentle and peaceful, nothing like the desperate, haunted energy Catherine had carried before. This was different. This was a spirit at rest, just passing through to express gratitude before moving on to wherever souls go when they finally find peace. I whispered back, "You're welcome, Catherine. Rest well." The warmth faded, and I was alone again. But I wasn't sad. I was grateful. Grateful that I'd been able to help, that Hope had gotten to meet her mother, that Catherine had finally received the answer she'd been seeking for 3 decades. The birth I'm preparing for tonight is actually Hope's friend, someone she referred to our center. The woman specifically requested room 7, said Hope told her it was special, that something beautiful had happened there. She doesn't know the full story, doesn't know about Catherine or the haunting. She just knows that Hope felt a powerful connection to this place and wanted to share it. As I finish preparing the room, I think about all the births I've attended here. Hundreds of babies brought into this world, hundreds of mothers crossing that threshold from woman to mother, that sacred transformation that happens in moments like these. And I think about Catherine, who crossed a different threshold, who gave everything for that transformation, who paid the ultimate price. Being a midwife means being present for miracles. I've always known that. But I thought miracles were just about babies being born, about new life entering the world. Now I understand that miracles come in many forms. Sometimes a miracle is a mother finding peace after 31 years of searching. Sometimes a miracle is a daughter finally understanding where she came from. Sometimes a miracle is simply being the bridge between worlds, the person who helps the living and the dead say the things they need to say. I've started keeping a journal of my nights here. Not just the births, but everything. The quiet moments, the feelings I get in different rooms, the stories patients tell me about why they chose this place. I'm documenting the history of this building, the lives that have touched it, the spirits that may still linger. Because Catherine wasn't the first and might not be the last. Buildings hold memories, especially places where intense emotions happen. Birth, death, love, loss, these powerful experiences leave imprints on the spaces where they occur. I'm learning to be sensitive to those imprints, to listen when the building speaks, to notice when something feels off or unusual. Last week, I was in the basement again, the same storage room where we found Catherine's file. I was looking for extra linens when I noticed something I'd missed before. In the back corner, behind the old cradle we'd discovered, there was another box. Smaller, dustier, like it hadn't been touched in even longer than Catherine's file. I opened it carefully. Inside were more records, these dating back to the 1920s and 30s, when this building was first used as a birthing house. There were dozens of files, women's names I didn't recognize, birth outcomes, some successful, some tragic. But one file caught my attention. A woman named Elizabeth Hartwell, who'd given birth here in 1932. According to the records, she died in childbirth, hemorrhage complications, same as Catherine. But unlike Catherine's file, this one had a note attached. Patient reported seeing deceased sister in birthing room prior to delivery. Dismissed as fever hallucination. Seeing deceased sister. I felt a chill run down my spine. What if this building has always been thin, a place where the veil between the living and the dead is more permeable than other places? What if Catherine wasn't the first spirit to get trapped here, waiting for something, unable to move on? I've started researching the building's full history, going back over 100 years. It was originally built in 1897 as a private residence for a doctor who specialized in obstetrics. He conducted home births here for wealthy families in the area. After he died in 1921, the building was converted into a proper birthing house, operating until the late 1950s when hospital births became more common. It sat empty for almost 20 years, then was purchased and renovated in the late 70s as a natural birth center, the precursor to what it is today. Throughout all those decades, this building has been a place where women come to give birth, where new souls enter the world, and yes, where sometimes mothers or babies don't survive. I've found records of at least 15 maternal deaths in this building over its 100-plus year history. 15 women who died bringing life into the world. That's not a particularly high number given the span of time and the thousands of births that occurred here, but it's still 15 women who might have left something of themselves behind. I wonder if any of them are still here, trapped like Catherine was, waiting for something, unable to rest. I wonder if that's why some rooms feel different than others, why certain spaces in the building always seem colder or heavier. Room 7 was Catherine's room, but what about room 3, which always has a faint smell of roses even though we never use scented products? What about the small room on the second floor that we use for storage now, the one that always makes me feel inexplicably sad when I'm in it? What about the attic space that's been sealed off for decades, which sometimes produces sounds like footsteps even though no one should be up there? I'm not afraid, which might seem strange. But these aren't malevolent spirits, if they're spirits at all. These are mothers, women who experienced the most profound event of their lives in this building. If any of them remain, it's not because they want to cause harm. It's because they're lost, confused, or waiting for something they can't achieve on their own. I've decided that part of my job now, beyond delivering babies and supporting mothers, is to be aware of these presences. To listen for them, to help them if I can. Catherine taught me that sometimes the dead need help just as much as the living, and if I'm in a position to provide that help, I should. Jenny thinks I've become obsessed. She's worried about me, keeps suggesting I take a vacation, get some distance from the birth center. But she doesn't understand. This isn't obsession. This is calling. I was meant to help Catherine find peace. I was meant to reunite her with her daughter. And if there are others here who need the same kind of help, I'm meant to find them too. The other night, I was doing rounds at 2 a.m. when I passed room 3, the one that always smells like roses. The door was closed, which was unusual because we always keep empty rooms open for air circulation. I opened it and stepped inside. The rose smell was stronger than I'd ever noticed before, almost overwhelming. And sitting in the rocking chair by the window was a woman. She was knitting, her hands moving steadily, creating something small and delicate. Baby booties, I realized. She was knitting baby booties. She looked up at me and smiled. She was older than Catherine had appeared, maybe in her 50s, with gray-streaked hair and kind eyes. "Hello, dear," she said, her voice warm and grandmotherly. "I'm almost finished with these. Do you think she'll like them?" I approached slowly, keeping my voice gentle. "I'm sure she will. They're beautiful." "Who are they for?" "My granddaughter, of course. My daughter's having a baby, and I wanted to make something special for her. I've been working on these for weeks." I didn't know what to say. Was this another spirit? Another woman trapped in this building? "What's your name?" I asked. "Margaret. Margaret Sullivan." "And you are?" "I'm Rebecca. I'm a midwife here." "Margaret, can I ask you something? Why are you here? In this room?" She looked confused. "Why, I'm waiting for my daughter, of course. She's in labor. They told me to wait here while they prepare her for delivery. I've been waiting quite a while though. Do you know how much longer it will be?" My heart sank. Another one. Another mother trapped in a moment, waiting for something that would never come. "Margaret, what year is it?" She laughed. "What a strange question. It's 1949, dear. May 7th, 1949. My daughter's birthday. Well, my grandchild's birthday now, I suppose." I went back to the file boxes in the basement the next day. Sure enough, there was a Margaret Sullivan in the records. Her daughter had come to the birthing house on May 7th, 1949, in labor with her first child. But there had been complications. The daughter had died, along with the baby. And according to a note in the file, Margaret Sullivan, who'd been waiting in another room, had suffered a fatal heart attack upon hearing the news. Mother, daughter, and grandchild, all lost in one terrible day. I've been visiting Margaret every night since. She doesn't seem distressed like Catherine was. She's content to sit and knit, waiting peacefully for her daughter. But she's still trapped, still reliving that day, unaware that she and her daughter are both long dead. I don't know how to help her yet. Catherine's resolution came through reuniting her with her daughter, but Margaret's daughter is dead too. They're both spirits, presumably, though I've never seen the daughter. Maybe Margaret needs to be reunited with her daughter in death, needs to understand that they can move on together. But I don't know how to make that happen. I'm learning as I go, trying to understand the rules of this strange new aspect of my job. Why do some spirits appear solid and others don't? Why can I see them but cameras can't? Why are they trapped in specific moments, specific rooms? What determines whether a spirit can move on or remains earthbound? I've reached out to people who study paranormal activity, mediums, and spiritualists who might have insights. Most of them are frauds, I can tell immediately. But a few seem genuine, seem to understand what I'm experiencing. One woman, a medium named Teresa, came to visit the birth center last week. She walked through the building with me, stopping in different rooms, feeling the energy. When we got to room 7, she nodded. Someone was here for a long time. A mother, separated from her child. But she's gone now. She found peace. She looked at me with knowing eyes. You helped her, didn't you? I told her about Catherine, about hope, about everything. Teresa listened without judgment, without skepticism. When I finished, she took my hands. Rebecca, you have a gift. You're what we call a psychopomp, a guide for souls in transition. Some people are just naturally sensitive to spirits, especially spirits in distress. This building, with its history of birth and death, it's a thin place. The veil between worlds is fragile here. Spirits get confused, trapped, caught between moving on and staying behind. You can help them cross over, if you're willing. How? I asked. What do I need to do? Listen to them. Understand what's keeping them here. Every earthbound spirit has unfinished business, something they need to resolve before they can rest. For Catherine, it was knowing her daughter survived. For others, it might be different. You have to figure out what each one needs and help them achieve it. She taught me some techniques. How to ground myself before attempting to communicate with spirits. How to protect my own energy so I don't become drained or overwhelmed. How to create a safe space for spirits to manifest and communicate clearly. Armed with this new knowledge, I've been approaching my nights at the birth center differently. I'm not just a midwife anymore. I'm a guide for the living and the dead, helping souls transition in both directions. Margaret is my current project. I've been sitting with her, talking to her, trying to gently make her understand that she's been waiting for 76 years, that her daughter is not coming, that it's time to move on. But she's resistant, locked in her loop of knitting and waiting. Then last night, something changed. I was in room 3 with Margaret, and suddenly the temperature dropped even further than usual. Margaret looked up from her knitting, and her face transformed with joy. "Sarah. Oh, my darling Sarah, you're here." I turned and saw another spirit materializing in the doorway. A young woman, heavily pregnant, wearing a dress from the 1940s. She looked confused, disoriented, but when she saw Margaret, she smiled. "Mother? What are you doing here? They told me you'd gone home, that you were resting." Margaret stood up, dropping her knitting, and rushed to her daughter. "I couldn't leave you, sweetheart. Not when you needed me. I've been waiting right here." Sarah looked around the room, then down at her swollen belly. "Mother, something's wrong. I was in the delivery room, and there was so much pain, and then everything went dark. Where's my baby? Where's the doctor?" I watched as understanding slowly dawned on both their faces. They looked at each other, then at me, then back at each other. "We died, didn't we?" Sarah whispered. "Both of us. And the baby." Margaret's eyes filled with ghostly tears. "I think we did, darling. I think we've been here all this time, waiting." They held each other, mother and daughter, and I felt Teresa's words echo in my mind. Sometimes spirits need to be reunited. Sometimes that's what allows them to move on. "You can go now," I said softly. "You're together. You don't need to wait anymore. Your baby is waiting for you, somewhere beyond this place. You can all be together." Margaret looked at me with gratitude. "Thank you for waiting with me. Thank you for not letting me be alone." And then they faded, both of them, Sarah's hand in Margaret's, walking toward a light that seemed to appear from nowhere. I could swear I heard a baby's cry, faint and distant, welcoming them home. Room 3 doesn't smell like roses anymore. The rocking chair sits empty, the knitting needles and half-finished booties gone as if they never existed. Another spirit at peace, another soul freed from its earthly tether. But there are more. I can feel them. This building holds so many stories, so many unfinished endings. And I'm beginning to understand that this is my true calling, the reason I was drawn to this place, to this work. I deliver babies, yes. I help women bring new life into the world. But I also help old souls leave it, guide them to their final rest, ensure that birth and death, the two great transitions of existence, are both honored and supported. My daughter asks me why I love my job so much, why I choose to work nights when I could easily find a day position. I tell her it's because nighttime is when the magic happens, when the boundary between worlds grows thin, when miracles occur. She's too young to understand the full truth, but someday I'll tell her. Someday I'll explain that her mother is not just a midwife but a guardian of transitions, a keeper of stories, a bridge between the living and the dead. For now, I continue my work. I welcome babies into the world and help departed souls leave it. I document the history of this building, honoring all the women who've passed through here, the ones who survived and the ones who didn't, the ones who moved on and the ones who stayed behind. The natural birth center of Riverside is more than just a place where babies are born. It's a threshold, a sacred space where the veil is thin and anything is possible. And I'm honored to be its guardian, to serve both the living mothers who walk through these doors and the dead ones who never left. Catherine started this journey for me, showed me there was more to this work than I'd ever imagined. She taught me that love transcends death, that a mother's need to protect and know her child doesn't end when her heart stops beating. She opened my eyes to a world I never knew existed, right here in the building where I'd worked for years. And now I see them everywhere. Not just in rooms 7 and 3, but throughout the building. Shadows in hallways. Whispers in empty rooms. The sensation of being watched when I'm alone. But I'm not afraid. I know who they are. They're mothers, all of them, women who gave everything to bring life into this world. My job is to honor them, to listen to their stories, and when I can, to help them find peace. It's the most important work I've ever done, more important even than the births I attend. Because at the end of every life, we all need a guide. Someone to hold our hand, to tell us it's okay to let go, to show us the way home. Just like babies need someone to catch them as they enter this world, souls need someone to release them as they leave it. I am that someone. For the living and the dead, for the beginning and the end, for the moment of birth and the moment of final rest. And I wouldn't trade this calling for anything in the world.